Hi, I'm Deborah Lindad, and this is Toxic Free Talk Radio, where we talk about how to thrive in a toxic world and live toxic-free. It's Thursday, February 19th, 2015. We're getting some of that cold winter wind down here in Florida, but we're all surviving. We're bringing out our sweaters instead of our shorts, although I've seen some people still wearing shorts in this cold weather. But I like it. I like it cold. I grew up in Northern California, and we had some coldness in winters, and so I kind of miss it when we have warm, balmy Florida winters. But anyway, my guest today, we're going to be talking about natural pest controls, and my guest today is an owner of a natural pest control company here in Clearwater, Florida. And he helps people control their pests without using toxic chemicals, toxic pesticides. And we're going to be talking about how, if you have a pest problem, how you can have a professional come and use natural methods of pest control, non-toxic methods of pest control to control those pests, and how you can do some of these things at home yourself too. But I just wanted you all to be aware that you can call a professional to come help you in a toxic-free way with your pest control, that is available, and we'll find out about that today. My guest is Michael Piacenza. He is the owner, certified operator, and canine handler of Advantage Pest Control in Clearwater, Florida. Hi, Michael.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Marvelous, darling. I'm also enjoying a little bit of the cool weather.
Yes. It's probably easier for you to do your pest control when it's cooler rather than 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, tell us, how did you, I was looking at your bio, and you've been a ship captain and all kinds of other things. How did you get to being the owner of a non-toxic pest control service?
Well, I wish it was a more exciting story than it is, but I was actually just having dinner with a friend of mine who is the founder of this company back in 1989, Bernie Curry, and we were just talking, and he said, I'm looking to retire in a few years. He goes, why don't you come on board with me and take over the company in a few years? And I said, man, I don't want to be around all those toxic chemicals. And he says, well, take a look at it. So I did. I did a little research, and I found out that there were plenty of ways to do professional pest control and to do it without damaging the environment and the customers. So I took on the challenge, and that was about 8 years ago.
So do you find, you've been doing this for 8 years, so you must have customers who are interested in it. Do you find that it's easy to make the sale, or are people skeptical, or how popular is it?
Well, it's become very, very popular. Surprisingly enough, over the 8 years, it has changed considerably. 8 years ago, I would show up and it might be the lady of the house would say, I want it to be safe, and the husband would call me off to the side and says, I know the wife wants it safe, but I want it deadly, Bring out the good stuff, So I would put a little bit of some peripherum that smells terrible, smells toxic, but it's really quite safe, and use that, and he'd be happy. And now I show up, and, there might be the man of the house, bearded and tattooed and looks like he just got off of a Harley, and he says, well, it better darn be safe for my dog. It's become the norm. Everybody is becoming aware of the fact that, we have to live in this in the environment that we create.
That's right. And it needs to be safe so that we can be healthy. So there's so many things that we can talk about, and we're going to talk about a lot of things today. But let's start with the canine unit. So what do dogs have to do with pest control?
That's Buddy. Now, Buddy, the termite-sticking dog. There's been a lot of research over the last decade or so on the best ways to detect subterranean termites. And they are the most destructive. They're the kind that make houses crack and roofs cave in. And trying to find them is problematic. They don't show themselves when they're inside the wall eating. They stay inside the wall until that wall gives way and cracks. Unlike drywood termites, the type that people tent for sometimes, they will make a little hole and kick pellets out. So it was a way of finding the termites before the damage is already done.
Mm-hmm.
Research at the university in Gainesville found that test study done with some beagles is that they could detect as little as 5 termites. Wow. Yeah. They had them go head-to-head with methane gas meters, and the dogs outperformed the professional meters. And the methane is basically looking for termite, the blunt parts. Termites give off more methane gas than any other creature on the planet Earth.
Wow. So how would somebody, so what you do is you go in with the dog and they sniff and find if someone has termites or not. So why would somebody call you in the first place? What would be some evidence that would give them reason to call you?
Well, most of the calls we get are people that are buying a new home, and they just want to know ahead of time whether they have a problem before they buy it. There's an inspection that everybody calls it termite inspection. Its technical name is the wood-destroying organism inspection or report.
Mm-hmm.
For termites, carpenter ants, wood decay, that kind of stuff. And you've got to basically go up and crawl around in an attic and take a screwdriver and punch around on the baseboards looking for a hollow spot. And that's really how you're looking for the termites. If you can get underneath the house, you'll look for mud tunnels or something like that. But that's it. It's pretty primitive, other than using something like a methane meter, and not many people use that. We actually have a radar gun designed for detecting termites in the wall, and it can pick up on movement. But it's a very, very sensitive piece of equipment, and it's really only good for isolating a small spot. Mm-hmm. So having a dog that you can walk around the perimeter of the house and take them into the bathrooms and sniff behind the shower and that kind of stuff is like having X-ray for termites. When he finds them, he just turns around and sits as close as he can to wherever they are.
Wow. That's pretty amazing that they have that ability to do it, and then that they can be trained and tell you where it is. It's like nature is so interesting.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So
if bloodhound, a drug dog or anything else, you're just getting him to pick up on a particular scent. In this case, live termites, not dead termites, not the mold that they leave behind or anything like that. Just live termites.
That's amazing. So we're coming up on break very shortly, but I'll ask you. So then, if termites are detected, what kinds of natural solutions do you have?
Oh, okay. Well, the traditional approach has been to dig a trench around the outside of the house, drill into the driveway and around the pool deck and sidewalks, and then, pour or inject into the ground these noxious chemicals that the most popular one is fipronil, which I believe is banned in China. It's that bad. And the natural ways of doing it would be to put in a baiting system around the house and get the termites feeding on a baiting system that they take down to the colony and disrupt the colony with something like an insect growth regulator or a neurotoxin or something like that. Even if you're using something toxic, if you're using it as a bait, you're not subjecting 100 gallons of it per house.
Right. We need to go to break. That's what that music is. And when we come back, we'll talk more about termites and other natural pest controls. You're listening to Toxic Free Talk Radio. I'm Deborah Lindad, and my guest today is Michael Piacenza. He's the owner, certified operator, and canine handler of Advantage Pest Control, and their website is pestcontrolnaturally.com. We'll be right back. You're listening to Toxic Free Talk Radio. I'm Deborah Lindad, and my guest today is Michael Piacenza. He's the owner, certified operator, and canine handler of Advantage Pest Control in Clearwater, Florida. And his website is pestcontrolnaturally.com. And he tells me that they sell some of the things that we're going to be talking about on the website. So if you're in need of some natural pest controls, you can order them online if you can't get them in your local area. Or if you don't have a professional. Actually, before we finish talking about termites, Michael, if somebody wanted to hire a professional natural pest control person, is there a website where everyone across the country is listed, or is there an association of natural pest controllers or something like that?
No, I wish there was. There are sites out there that will reference people to local companies, but there's just not a national site. I actually was considering starting something like that up, but business has been too good and I've been too busy.
Well, Michael, that's just the kind of thing I should do, so let's talk.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would fit right into the work that I'm already doing. So let's go back to termites. So what would you do if your dog found termites in a wall?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would do, he pinpoints exactly where they're at, right? So he'll pick up an activity area, but they live down in the ground. So the main colony could be 50 feet away. It could be underneath the next door neighbor's house. So the best thing you can do is put in a monitoring system or a baiting system around the house, and they'll start feeding on it. Because the way that the colony spreads is there's three ways. They'll either swarm and start a whole new colony, or they'll send out foragers. They're always sending foragers out looking for new wood. And once they find some new wood and they report back, they'll build a tunnel to them. So the baiting system around the perimeter of the house is the best way to go. We actually have apartment complexes that we monitor from North Florida down to the southern west coast of Florida. So we use the baiting system, and when we find activity, then we'll swap it out with another type of a bait that has an insect growth regulator. We'll take down to the colony and eliminate it that way. If it's a really, really bad infestation, then we may need to inject into the wall the area where they're actively eating to get a quick knockdown. But then we're using a couple of gallons of product instead of 100 or 150 gallons on a house. We're only talking here about subterranean termites. There's an entirely different type of termite, which is called drywood. Here in the south and all across the southern part of the country, drywood termites are prevalent. And those are the kind where you see a tent over the house and they, fumigate it, gas the house. And that's some pretty toxic stuff there.
It is. It is. Well, you've mentioned a couple of different kinds of methods. One of the things that I'd like to do on the show today is talk about, I know that you take a multifaceted approach and that there's several different areas of types of alternatives, and I'd like us to cover those just so that our listeners can get an idea of when they go to a professional, the kinds of tools they have available to them. And as you've already pointed out, that just because somebody is doing it green or non-toxic, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily only using plant-based materials or things that are completely non-toxic. Some of it has to do with the way that they're used. As you said, putting things in very specific spots instead of spraying them all over the place. So let's just start with integrated pest management, IPM, because that's something that a lot of companies use. And could you explain what that is and what the basic philosophy is behind it?
Okay. Well, your standard pest control company philosophy is come in, hit it hard, and hope you don't have to come back. So they'll use the most toxic stuff that they can legally use in hopes of just wiping out any problem and not get a call back. All right. At the other end of the spectrum is using a variety of approaches like integrated pest management. With integrated pest management, you're working with the homeowner to find points of entry and get those sealed up, educating the customer on what the pests eat, maybe not putting the dog bowl or cat bowl out overnight so the ants don't find it. In the morning you've got an infestation. Just put it down when they're going to be there to eat and then put it away, keeping things sealed up. So now some companies that claim to be safe and using integrated pest management will go in and do those types of things, and then if they do have a problem, they hit it with toxic pesticides, and they say, well, we're using them more judiciously. And there's some validity there. Our approach is to educate the customer and then use eco-friendly products that are either botanically based or organic, things that are, some of the safest things that we use are inorganic minerals like boric acid, made from boron, and boron is half as toxic as table salt.
Yeah.
We try to come in on a regular basis. We do like quarterly pest control and using the safer products. And then we only go to a more toxic product if we have to, and then very judiciously and very targeted for a pest. So it's a little bit more time-consuming on our part, but it's really what our customers are looking for.
It is, and sometimes things do take more time. I mean, toxic chemicals are usually like hit it hard and have it be done with, but that doesn't necessarily support life as a whole. And it is require more care and more time. One thing I want to ask you about, my biggest, I actually don't have a lot of pest problems because I do a lot of what you've mentioned, like sealing up holes and things. Oh, but we need to go to break. I'm so glad I have this music. Sometimes I get all absorbed in talking and I forget to look at the clock. You're listening to Toxic Free Talk Radio. I'm Deborah Lindad, and my guest today is Michael Piacenza. He's the owner, certified operator, and canine handler of Advantage Pest Control in Clearwater, Florida, and his website is pestcontrolnaturally.com. We'll be right back. You're listening to Toxic Free Talk Radio. I'm Deborah Lindad, and my guest today is Michael Piacenza. He is the owner, certified operator, and canine handler of Advantage Pest Control in Clearwater, Florida. And his website is pestcontrolnaturally.com. You know, Michael, during the break, I was looking on your website because I was about to ask you a question, but I found the answer on the website.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. So just for our listeners to know this, you, in addition to being a professional, so he could come to your house here in the local Tampa Bay area, he also has a lot of products and information on the website. And there's, if you look in the menu across the top, it says tips and tricks, and you can find out how to control fleas, roaches, ticks, bugs, flying insects, spiders, bed bugs, and ants. And I was just looking at roaches because the thing that I have the most problem with is what we call here in Florida palmetto bugs. And the first night that I moved here from, we don't have those in California. So the first night I moved here from California and I walked into my kitchen in the middle of the night, there were these big brown bugs all over the kitchen. And it was just horrible. And I screamed because I had never seen so many bugs like that, and they're big and they look like they're not real pretty. So what I found was that what we really needed to do was fill in the cracks and that they were just coming in the cracks, and it was maintenance, house maintenance that was needed. But then they found their way in again, and I remember there was a time, I've been in this house for 13 years, and this was some years ago, but they somehow got into the hall closet where I was storing a lot of things like soap with little additives in it, little flower petals and stuff. And they were eating the soap because it had the flower petals in it. And so they were nesting all over my hall closet. And I know this sounds terrible, but you know what I'm sure I'm not the only person that puts stuff in the hall closet and starts packing it in, and you never go in there. You never move things around. It just becomes this storage area. And then one day you go in there and you find that it's full of bugs. And once I took everything out, we vacuumed everything up, we took all the bugs out and took away anything like flower petals and soap that would be a food source. And I've never had that problem again. It totally handled it.
Mm-hmm. That's integrated pest management. Part of it is eliminating food sources and harborages for the pests.
Right. So you want to eliminate the food source. You want to eliminate if you've got dripping water pipes that give them water, and you want to eliminate things like piles of papers and stuff that provide shelter. And you also want to put screens on windows. And if you do those kinds of things, fill up cracks, if you just do that short list of things to make your house impermeable like that and nothing to attract them, that handles like many, many pest problems, doesn't it? Just that short list of things.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last part you said.
Just that short list of things that I just mentioned, doesn't that handle many pest problems?
Yeah, it does. And I try to tell people you got to think of pest control in a couple of different ways. It's called pest control, not pest annihilation.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like you're going to eliminate every single bug. You just want to make sure that you got it under control so that you don't have a full-fledged bloom of something. You get one little cockroach in your house, well, you probably don't like that, but they're going to die of old age before they find another one to mate with. So you can keep things clean and tight without anything for them to eat, then the better off. And the other way of looking at pest control, professional pest control, I tell people to think of it like getting your teeth cleaned. You don't wait till you have a cavity to go get your teeth cleaned. Get your teeth cleaned so you don't get cavities.
That's right. That's right. I want to just add one thing, and this may seem kind of off the subject, but it's related, I assure you. I recently read a little book. This book actually is one of those life-changing books. It's called, I forgot. It's called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up or something like that. And it's written by a Japanese woman for women in Japan who live in very tiny spaces, not like people here who live in very big spaces. But what this book showed me was a different way of looking at how we handle objects in our homes. And she was talking about how she goes into people's homes and she helps them eliminate things. Her criteria is only have in your home what you're using and what you love, and everything else goes unless you store it in the proper way, if you even need to be storing it. And I started looking at my house in a whole different way. And, there's so many things that just sit there and we never touch them. They're just things that we think that we should keep. And that's where the pests want to live. They want to live behind those books and all those hidden places. And if you only just do the simple thing of having fewer possessions and moving them around because you're using them and cleaning the shelf and things like that, that's a really big thing. I can really see, spiders and, things like that I don't even see until I started moving things and deciding if I wanted all this stuff in my house even.
Yeah, I have a philosophy of one in, one out.
Yeah.
If I bring in something, I make sure that it's replace something I've already used, or I get rid of one or two or three things, so I try to keep things to a minimum. I'll tell you, I get calls periodically from people saying, my pantry is overrun with little tiny bugs, right? And usually it turns out to be weevils that have hatched out of a box of doggy biscuits in the back of the pantry that they bought 2 years ago, and the dog didn't like. So the dog didn't like it, you should have thrown it away.
Right. That's exactly the point. You know, we buy something and then we think, well, I don't like this, so I'm going to put it in a cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just sits there causing problems, and it should go immediately out. I mean, even if you have to lose $10 or whatever you paid for it, it's better to not have it in the house. And, you know, I'm finding things, I go, why did I even keep this? It's because I couldn't bear to part with something that I had paid good money for, you know. I don't know where this comes from, but it's much better to let things go. Anyway, we need to go to... I thought I heard the music, but we do need to go in 20 seconds, so I won't ask you the next question. But let's see, something else on the website. Excuse me, pestcontrolnaturally.com. Tips and tricks, and there's information about services, and wow, there's just so much information here. We'll talk more with Michael when we come back. You're listening to Toxic Free Talk Radio. I'm Deborah Lindad, and my guest today is Michael Piacenza, owner, certified operator, and canine handler of Advantage Pest Control in Clearwater, Florida. And his website is pestcontrolnaturally.com, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Toxic Free Talk Radio. I'm Deborah Lindad, and my guest today is Michael Piacenza, owner, certified operator, and canine handler of Advantage Pest Control. And his website is pestcontrolnaturally.com. It's got a lot of information there. And if you are looking for how to control a pest around the house naturally, this is a good place to look. So, Michael, we talked about integrated pest management. We talked about baiting. So if you've done all those things to remove the things that attract the pests to inside your home, but you still need to use something like a powder or a spray or something in order to kill the pests. Talk to us about natural products. And also, I know that you also talk about using minimal risk and reduced risk pesticides. So let's talk about those classifications of risk as well.
Alrighty. Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that a lot of people, when they're trying to go safer and more natural, the first thing they want to jump to is a repellent. And, you know, a repellent can be beneficial. Like we sell a snake repellent, and that's great. You can sprinkle it around the outside of your house, and it'll repel the snakes, and it's like cinnamon and things like that, overpowers the snake's sense of smell. But if you start using repellents in your house, you may just be moving the bugs from one place to another and exacerbating your problem. Most of the time what you want to do is you want to use something that the bugs aren't even going to notice, like simple boric acid. Like we sell a boractin, it's called. And it's just a very safe boric acid. You sprinkle it very lightly. The bugs walk through it. They get it on their feet and their antennas like cockroaches or ants, and then they groom themselves. And all that does is it shuts down their digestive enzymes and protozoas, and then they just starve to death, where it's made out of salt and boron is in your one-a-day vitamin with minerals. So it's pretty safe stuff. And there are other products. There are neurotoxins. And as soon as I say that, everybody's hair on the back of their neck will stand up, I'm sure. But there are different types of neurotoxins. There are some that will affect humans but don't have long-term negative effects. Like perithiums are not very bad for people. You wouldn't want to just, be breathing it in all the time. But, used lightly in certain areas, that works pretty good. That actually has a little bit of repellent in it. But there are other neurotoxins that are plant-based that only affect neurons that are in insects. And there's some really good patented products by EcoSmart and Insistec and what's that? Insistec? I can't remember the name of that company right off the top of my head. Accentria is one of the products. Accentria D. And that's still safe. It falls into the classification of minimal risk. And that's a new classification that it's like the safest products. It's so safe, it's exempt from EPA regulations.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the EcoSmart products used to have a product line called the exempt product line, and that's what it is. The exempt products are in that minimal risk. And then one step above that is what's called the reduced risk. And that kind of falls into the category very much like essential oils. So now essential oils, sounds super, super safe, but, there's some natural products out there that it can kill you, too. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
Customers that call up and they say, do you do all organic? And I'm like, well, my safest products are inorganic minerals, but let's get together and have a cup of organic hemlock tea and talk about it.
That's right. Well,
like,
even, water, even if it's the purest water, you can drown in water, you can eat too much salt, you can, it's toxicity is a relative thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just, finding the proper gradient, at what level you need to take care of the problem. And, is the problem going to be, the pest problem, more toxic than the cure?
Yeah.
Because roaches and rodents, they can transmit all types of diseases.
Yes, they can. And so, that's actually an interesting point, because there are some insects which are beneficial bugs and other insects which are toxic in and of themselves. Like, you don't want to have pests around your house that would cause you to get sick, any more than you'd want to have toxic chemicals around your house that you would want to get sick. So what are some of the household pests that people really do need to be concerned about controlling because you don't want them to harm you?
I get calls all the time for people saying, I've got this terrible, terrible bug, and it has these big claw thing on the back of it, and it's what's called an earwick. And they look really nasty. But they're a very beneficial bug, and an adult earwig can eat up to 100 chinch bugs in one day. And chinch bugs are what kills off a lot of the grass here in the late spring and early summer by piercing the grass and sucking the juices out of it. So, so you got to come in and put pesticide down on the lawn to kill off the chinch bug, because somebody put pesticide down too early and killed off all of the earwicks that would have eaten them anyway.
That's a really good point, because we, in our culture as a whole, we're so ignorant of all these relationships in nature, and that we should know that earwigs eat pinch bugs, and that we should know how those cycles of life work and use them as part of our pest controls and not be destroying them, that we end up destroying those cycles, and then we want to spray toxic chemicals because we've destroyed the cycle. And there's really so much, if you're moving away from using toxic substances in every area of life, there's so much to learn on the other side about the possibilities of how we can do things better.
Yeah, it's just such a delicate balance, and people try to do things around the house themselves, and I got to give them a lot of credit for the attempt. But a lot of times they end up doing more harm than good. They go out and they cut their grass too low, and now they've cut it too low, so the sun can hit down to the soil. It dries out the soil. They need more water, and weeds can get in there and get germinated. So now you got to spray it with herbicides.
Right.
The grass is now stunted. It's susceptible to a few grubs or mole crickets or chinch bugs eating on it, where if it was thick and lush and healthy and got lots of good nutrients, it would be able to withstand that attack without having to put a pesticide on it. And it all started with just cutting your grass too short.
Yeah. And those are the kinds of things that we don't know in our culture, those are like the wisdom things that we don't carry around with us. We just have this other way of just spraying toxic chemicals on everything, and having those points of wisdom of knowing how to, the actions that we should take that give a result that leads to life thriving is part of what's so fascinating to me about the work that I do. Because it's not all about just identifying toxic chemicals. It's finding what the other solutions are. And I think that as more people can see this different way of viewing life, then we'll all be healthier and the planet will be healthier and all that. You've done such a great job of putting all this information together. I know I've known you for a while, some years, and I see more information and well presented and everything. And I just think you're doing a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you.
So we've got about a little less than 2 minutes left. Any final words you want to give us?
Well, I would tell people that, like I was elaborating on what I was saying, is trying to do it yourself is very admirable. But you've got to do a lot of research, and you might just be better off to hire a professional. Spend your time doing the research to get the right professional. Yeah, there's certain little things that you want to look for. When you call up and you are looking for a new pest control company, ask them lots of questions. If they're not going to spend the time on the phone to answer these questions or offer to come out and meet with you and discuss things, you probably got the wrong people. They're probably just going to throw toxic pesticides at it and just hope for the best. If you get a company that advertises once a year pest control, well, I'll bet $1 to a donut, as my dad used to say, that they're not using the eco-friendly stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. If people want to call you up who live in other places, I mean, I know you're my local natural pest control operator. If people want to call you for advice from other places, is that okay for them to do that?
Yeah, I would say first check out our website. There's many, many how-to videos on there that answer a lot of the frequently asked questions. And sometimes after watching the video, they'll see different products, and they can actually buy the product right there on the website and be able to take care of the stuff themselves.
Thank you. We're running out of time now. Thank you so much. You're listening to Toxic Free Talk Radio. I'm Deborah Lindad. Be well.